Division One, everybody's talking about the one or two kids throwing 68 to 70. There's a couple of those, not many. Most of your successful Division One pitchers are 62 to 65. There's a lot of 60 that are very successful.
Yes.
So like I said, you bump 60, I'm interested. You bump 65, I'm really interested. But if you can't change it up or move it up and down, you're just another arm.
Whether you live northeast, west, or south, the best fast pitch info comes from the coach's mouth. Welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast with your hosts, Jay Bolden and Ken Kraus.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea. This is the From the Coach's Mouth podcast. Of course, this is Ken Kraus here with you, as always, with my good buddy, Jay Bolden. Jay, how we doing today?
I'm doing good, Ken. Hey, how about those T-shirts, man? We looked pretty good in those T-shirts a couple weeks ago. It's great to look good and get out there and get together. It was awesome getting together with you. But the T-shirts I thought were really cool. Have you had any response about some people sharing the podcast and getting some free T-shirts?
Oh, yeah. They're keeping me busy. In fact, I was going to do a couple of other things today, and I was like, oh, wow, I got to get out there and get some of those requests in. The people that have been liking and sharing an episode and, getting that out there on social media, we really appreciate it. It's been growing. I did want to comment, it's on our Facebook page now, one of the photos that we took the other day. And once again, people get the reinforcement as to why this is an audio only podcast.
True. Very true. Faces, like I said, faces for radio, for sure.
Yeah. But it's nice to see things growing. I think this is helping us. The last time I looked, we were over 12,000 people had downloaded or streamed an episode, at least one. We have about 400 followers now between Spotify and Apple. 87 was the last one I saw on Facebook. So word's getting out there, and hopefully it'll get out there a little bit more.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you, everybody who's been sharing an episode from the podcast. This is going to be another great one that you could share if you want. And if you do, make sure you click follow, share this episode, and then we'll just message Ken and I, and we'll get a T-shirt out to you guys while supplies last, of course. So, but yeah, it's great. And I love the fact that we're doing that. And I love the fact that people actually want to wear those T-shirts too, which is super cool. Hopefully, if you are listening to this and you have shared it, when you do get your T-shirt, I think it'd be pretty cool if you took a picture with it, and we'll post it on some of our social media stuff too, so that we could show some of our listeners out there as well.
Yeah, or you guys, I think you're able to post on there, but if not, then send it to us and we'll post it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, enough babbling, Ken. You want to give some information about this amazing guest we have today? Another great guest here today. So I'm super excited to get into some conversations today with him.
All righty. We're delighted to welcome today's guest to the podcast because of his experience as a collegiate and private coach, recruiter, player retention expert, in-class instructor, and academic advisor. The Surrey, British Columbia native, that's in Canada for the geographically challenged, began his coaching journey as an assistant baseball coach and pitching coach at Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, where he earned his associate's degree of arts in mass communications. He then moved to Graceland University, an NAIA school in Lamoni, Iowa, where he served as an assistant baseball coach for 2 years before making the transition to head softball coach and sports information director at Graceland. During that stint, he earned his bachelor's degree in communications from Graceland and then went on to complete his master's in science in sports management from California University of Pennsylvania. From there, he went to Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona, where he wore 3 hats: assistant softball coach, assistant baseball coach, and sports information director, while helping his team to a 51-14 mark and coming within 1 game of reaching the national tournament. In 2011, he became the head softball coach and sports information director at Lewisburg College in North Carolina, amassing a 70-56 record in 3 years before taking on the head coaching role at the University of Minnesota Crookston. He later joined the University of North Dakota staff as an assistant coach, where he remained until 2024 when he took on a new role at the university as a program officer in its Indians into Medicine program, which helps Native Americans pursue careers in the healthcare field, including becoming physicians and nurses. He still keeps a hand in the softball world, however, as the owner of DJ Stopa Consulting and Training, which offers skills training and recruiting advice to prospective college athletes. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm From the Coach's Mouth podcast welcome to Don Stopa.
Thanks for having me here, guys.
Welcome, Don. Thank you for spending some time with us today, man. We're super excited to talk some softball and some other things with you today. So thanks again for spending some time with us today.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. Nothing better to do on a snowy day up here in the north.
Yeah, we haven't had snow recently, but we did have some pretty bad storms up this way.
Yeah, the weather was crazy. It's been a lot of wind and hail and rain. It's rained for like 4 or 5 days here, so yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, all the local weather people were really, really excited, though. They broke into the network shows, and they were just on there showing radars and talking about this area and that area, repeating themselves every 3 minutes. It was a lot of fun for them. I think that's what they live for.
Well, you mentioned a great resume for me, which just another way to say I'm old with all those jobs. But I've actually added to that a little bit this year. I'm actually coaching with one of the high schools here in town.
Really? Are you?
Yeah, and the funny part is we've played 5 games so far, all of them inside in domes, and we're supposed to play on the road today, our first outdoor games, but there is 3 weather advisories over the next 3 days. So we could see up to 6 or 8 inches in the next 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, that's good exercise. Get the kids out there scraping off the field, and, the game is on, right?
Yeah, it's part of my life, and everywhere I've coached except for in Tucson there, we've learned how to get snow off a ball field.
Awesome. All right, Don, well, let's jump in here. Let's get started. So we asked this just about everybody. Where did it all start for you? How did you get involved in fast pitch softball? Well,
the funny part, fast pitch has been part of my life. My father played. And when I was a real little one, I got to see my dad pitch a bunch of times, just community league kind of deal. But the guy never threw a ball overhand. I played catch with him most of my life. Never saw the guy throw a ball overhand. That's the kind of pitcher he was.
Wow.
I even had the opportunity, and, I'm going to say maybe the early 80s, maybe late 70s, to see the King and his court play up there in Vancouver. So I saw Ernie Feiner get it done. So I've been a part of that game since birth. I even played organized fast pitch as a kid, my first 3 years of organized sport. But all the guys in my neighborhood were baseball guys, so I eventually joined them. And at age 11, I went to the dark side and played baseball, which led to what I'm doing now. At age 18, I got hurt. So I started coaching some kids. A couple years later, got hurt again. So I started coaching as a side thing, and that was where I got the bug. I played ball my whole life, but I wanted to still be involved. Started coaching kids. There it is. First college job was a baseball job because that's the way it worked. It was a great story. I got a phone call 18 days later, rented out my condo, quit my job, paid off my bills, sold my car the day my flight left, and I was in Oklahoma. From Vancouver to Oklahoma in 18 days. And that's how I got into coaching. A couple years later at Graceland University, still with baseball, I TA'd for the softball coach. After TAing for him, he's like, hey, I really like working with you. How would you like to be my associate head coach next year? So I went from a part-time baseball coaching job to a full-time paycheck coaching softball. The next year, he retired. So the program was mine. So I went from 1 year as an associate head coach to the head coach, and that's where I really got into college softball, and I've stayed. I had a short little stint in Arizona back in baseball because we moved to Arizona for my wife to go to graduate school, and the first job I got in town was baseball. But the softball coach every year, when are you going to quit baseball and get back on the real field? I did, and Armando Quiroz, I thank him for doing that because I've never looked back since. It's been softball for 18 years straight.
Yeah, I know this is kind of a loaded question, but which one do you prefer?
I got my start in Oklahoma. That was with baseball. So if I'm going to say from a baseball side of things, loved it there. But softball, it's in my blood. Before I was even playing, watching my older sister play. Back in the early 80s, she played in travel softball, which really wasn't a thing yet. But in the West Coast, we had a bunch of travel softball up in BC. So, from diapers on, I've been around fast pitch. It's in my blood.
Did you play any other sports when you were growing up?
Yeah. I played all the high school sports, through middle school, I should say, because on the west coast of Canada, very blessed that we had baseball all year round. Indoors, 7 of those months, but we had baseball all year round. So from age 11 on, it was baseball, baseball, baseball. But I played soccer, I played basketball, I played volleyball. I was good at all of them, but baseball is where it was for me. It's where I had the most fun. It's the sport I was the best at. So that's what it was for me. But I still agree that kids play all year round. If you're going to specialize, maybe your junior year, it's time to specialize. But before that, play everything.
Yeah. It's a very, very good comment right there. I think a lot of times these kids are specializing at 10, 11 years old, and you don't even know if these kids are going to even see it all the way through, So, and again, I think it's more about being an athlete first, right? Being an athlete first and then turn into that softball player or whatever, volleyball player. But yeah, I agree with you. Play a lot of sports. I think it's huge.
Yeah. I think a good way I heard somebody put it once is that you may really love chocolate ice cream, but how do you know you don't love vanilla or mint chip more? Try them all and then figure it out.
Yeah, and there's 2 kinds of softball players that make it to the collegiate level. Great athletes playing softball and softball players. And they both make it there, and it's just at times we're going to say those great softball players will probably end up being the best of the best. But there is 2 kinds of kids that do it, and I like them both.
I want to talk a little bit, Don. You've already kind of given us a little bit of your coaching journey in your path there. 2 questions really. Like, what shaped you early on, shaped you in your path early on to really realize or was there a time where you're like, or a moment where you're like, this is what I was meant to do? Like I'm meant to be a coach.
The coolest thing about the way my journey started, and many coaches do, I started a lot of small colleges where you also have secondary duties. So it makes you a more well-rounded person. But with the small colleges, you don't necessarily have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 assistant coaches and director of ops and all that stuff. So I've had to do everything. I was a pitcher. So that's what I knew well. I was a great middle infielder, but couldn't hit a lick. So I became a full-time pitcher. The DH was my best friend. But as a coach, I've had to work with every group on the field. And I've enjoyed every part. And when I learned something new, I picked it up and excelled with it. Because now that we've got the Google, you can find videos on everything to make yourself better. There is some crazy stuff out there, and we all know, we've all seen it. Okay. But even that crazy stuff gives me an idea of what I shouldn't do. But yeah, I've been able to just grow with every job, but I've had to do everything. There's not one part. Been the strength coach, been the speed coach, pitchers, catchers, outfielders, infielders, you name it. I've had to do it all, and I love doing it. That's what brought me back to high school this year. I took a year off. And now I'm coaching high school ball with a former UND player that didn't play for me, but I'm back coaching that, and I'm helping her with everything because she's done a great job with her program. Now she wants to make it a little bit better, and that's my job.
Well, that's fun. So, you say now, coaching high school, you've coached pretty much at every level, NAIA, Division II, Division I. What lessons did you learn during those years? And is there anything out of any of those levels or each of those levels that sticks with you today?
They're all great levels. That's one thing on the recruiting trail. Everybody's got the D1 dreams, and so did I as a coach, but not everybody's a Division I ball player. But the junior college kids, they're working as hard as the Division I kids are. The NAIA teams, there's great NAIAs that beat a lot of D1s. Okay. And even at the D2 level, the best of the best can compete at the Division I level, as we're now seeing in schools transitioning to Division I out of Division II or even Division III, like St. Thomas in Minneapolis. It can happen, but there is great ball at every level. And just because it's Division III doesn't mean it's a lot of work. Or it's not a lot of work. It is. It's college softball. It's the real deal.
What kind of work do you think, or how do you see the workloads being a little bit different?
Well, and that's the part of my story that's the negative. It's not all rainbows and unicorns here. I said for a lot of years I didn't want to be a Division I coach because most of my friends that are on marriage number 2, 3, or 4. Yeah. 2 years into my career as a Division I coach, I became a statistic. My first marriage ended, and that moved on. Luckily enough, marriage number 2 is really successful, so I'm really happy with that. But that is the part of it. Division I, you have no life. And that's something I spoke out at the national convention a couple of years ago and ruffled some feathers because I got to put it on the head coaches. There is no work-life balance. It's a work-work balance. So when talking about calendars, the head coaches have got to give their assistants some life. And even the head coaches themselves got to be able to get a life. It's 360 days a year, 16-hour days in the summer. That's Division I softball. Division II ain't far behind. Okay. But that is the biggest thing, that the negative takeaway is there is no work-life balance anymore. And it's tough. And that's why I retired after 25 years at the collegiate level. I've got a 12 and a 16-year-old that I saw more in the last year than the last 10 years put together.
Now, Don, I want to ask you a quick question. There's a new calendar. Am I correct? Did they just come out with some new calendar? What are your thoughts about the new calendar? I haven't really dug into it too much, but like, is that more or is that less? Is that better or is that worse? What are your thoughts?
The NCAA made a great step with that. So with those blackout dates, you can't do anything. You can't talk to your players. You can't talk to your recruits. You can't respond to them on Twitter if you wanted to. And it's just a couple extra days a year surrounded around some of the dead periods that makes it so you just can't coach. Now, that doesn't mean you're not running into the office to get caught up on paperwork or looking at stats or synergy or something like that. So that's, once again, the head coaches and the coaches got to get together and say, no, don't come to work. A couple of our greatest coaches in this country over the last 40 years, talked to them, met them. Some of them I can call friends. They've even told me they've had days where they'll say, okay, this assistant coach, you are not coming to work today. I don't want you here. Okay. It's not because I didn't love them. It's because they needed them to go be a family person or go enjoy something they like. And that's something huge. And those new blackout dates, it allows a little bit more of that. So it is a step forward, but still it's all about the money and all about the winning and people keeping their jobs. So I don't have a problem with the workaholic mentality. But as you're looking around the country today, young coaches are lasting a year or two and getting out. A lot of the veteran coaches are getting out. The paycheck isn't worth it. Okay, the time commitment's incredible, but you got to love it. I did it for 25 years because of my love of these kids and the game. Because trust me, it was not about a paycheck.
Yeah, well, and if you wanted to work that much, you'd have been an NFL coach.
Yeah, with the amount of film work those guys do, I'd hate to see what that life looks like.
All right, so let's talk a little pitching, if you don't mind. What do you look for when you're looking at pitchers? You're out on the recruiting trail and you're trying to consider something. Maybe you guys are interested in this girl or that girl. What are you looking at with those pitchers, and what kind of expectations are you hoping to meet?
Yeah, the easy part is my radar gun doesn't lie. Everybody else does. You know, I've had a lot of players. She's 66, 67. I get there. She's 56, 57. So my radar gun doesn't lie, and that opens the door. You know, I'm going to look at the velo, and if it's something I'm interested, okay, now we're going to look more. But once again, I go back to my radar gun. If there's a changeup, I want to see the difference. And then after that, I'm a north and south guy. The east and west is fine. They're great pitches, but not for everybody, as the bat plane's moving on the same plane. But if you've got a drop ball or a rise ball that is real, that north and south with a changeup, I'm in love. You don't even have to throw real hard. You know, Division I, everybody's talking about the one or two kids throwing 68 to 70. There's a couple of those, not many. Most of your successful Division I pitchers are 62 to 65. There's a lot of 60 that are very successful. Yes. So like I said, you bump 60, I'm interested. You bump 65, I'm really interested. But if you can't change it up or move it up and down, you're just another arm.
So when I watch games on TV, though, I mean, I see a lot of kids throwing 68, 70, 72. Are those guns juiced, do you think? I mean, are you seeing something different with your radar gun?
Yeah, I am at times. I'm not going to sell it out or anything like that. But here at UND, we were playing in a tournament one time, and we had one kid, and she was our soft lefty. Okay, but we knew she had a team that wasn't going to ever see that all year long because they were a top 8 program at the time. And she was very successful, but she came in the door, Coach, I'm not throwing 63. No, she was throwing 56, 57, but the gun was showing 63. And sure, I'd love to say she was amped up for the big game, but it wasn't real. So you do see that. And ESPN is about, you know, making money, getting people interested. And they've been so good for our game, okay, with a lot of what they do, not everything, but a lot of what they do. But if that gun's showing a lot of 69 and some 70s, that's good for TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily for the psyche of pitchers or their parents, though, who would think, oh, my God, I'm so far behind that.
Yeah, and the parents are bought in a lot of that. And, you know, my kid's got to throw that hard. No, they don't. They got to be able to pitch.
Yeah. I want to share a story with you. This is years ago. I can't remember who it was. Came out, he was a director of ops somewhere, came out and said, look at the last 8 teams in the Women's College World Series. Why are they there? Because every one of those pitchers on every one of those staffs, or whatever, predominantly, are throwing the ball between 68 to 72 miles an hour. And one of them was Giselle Juarez. Do you remember her from Oklahoma?
Yep.
She came out and responded to that on Twitter and said, I have never thrown, he posted her speed and it was like 68. And she goes, I have never thrown a ball 68 miles an hour. And I am radared every week at Oklahoma. She's like, I'm probably hitting 66 when I'm amped up. And she goes, and it's probably getting hit because it's flat and not moving. And she just came out and said, what you're saying is not correct. Just because the gun said that, that doesn't mean that I did that. And I think that's a huge thing. And I saved it. I post it every year in the Women's College World Series because someone will come out and say, oh, look at all these kids throwing 70 miles an hour. And then here's this little clip from the person who said, or, from someone who said that this person was throwing 68 to 69, and she's telling you she's never thrown a ball over 67 miles an hour. It's mostly, 66 or even lower. So again, I think that's a huge thing for people to listen to. Like, there are kids that do throw the ball that hard. We know this, but they don't grow on trees. They're an anomaly, a lot of them, And like you said, my time at that level too was everybody that I saw was throwing, 62 to 65. I didn't see anybody that year throwing the ball 70 miles an hour. It was crazy. So yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's a huge thing that people and parents need to hear and listen is like, you can be successful. Like you talked about it. North and South is going to be, if you're good at one of those two pitches, you're going to be a pretty solid pitcher. It could be at any of those levels.
Yeah, we had a young lady here at UND the last couple of years. She could consistently throw 65, 66, but her straight pitches were anywhere from 57 to 66 because she changed up her speeds even with her straight pitches. And once again, and her changeup was just divine. So that didn't help the cause or anything. It was amazing. But yeah, she even varied her speeds and she could juice it up whenever she wanted to. Yeah. But when she had to throw a good pitch, she'd back off a little bit and throw it where she needed to.
So let's stay on the pitching for just a second here too, since Ken kind of opened up those cans, because Ken and I both, we deal with a lot of pitchers. I'm pretty sure we're very common on the same mechanical things that we really look for in pitching. But I want to ask you, and I'm going to do kind of a twofold question here. What are some of the common mechanical flaws you see being taught or misunderstood? And then two, in your opinion, what do you think about all those, I'm not going to say amazing, but all of those crazy drills on Instagram and TikTok and all of that? What are your thoughts on that? So what are some common mechanical flaws you see being taught or misunderstood? And then what's your thought on all of the Instagram drills?
Well, the flaws, the biggest thing for me is lack of use of legs. I see so much out there, so many pitchers that are just full arm kids. You got the largest muscle mass in your body is on those two stems of yours. A lot of power is generated from the legs. And I just don't see people working with that enough. Everybody's worried about their Ks, their circles, blah, 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 their spins, their flips, which is all good stuff. But pitching starts from the ground up. And you see a lot of kids out there that don't use their legs very well. So whether that's a flaw or not really, it's just not using it well enough. And that's where I really struggle, because you do go out there. I'll watch some kids, especially some really young pitchers. There's just nothing in the legs. And imagine what they could do. There's no drive or anything like that. It's just kind of like a little step or jump off the mound and a quick arm.
Is that something that you feel like if you saw other good things, you say, I can change that? Or is that something where you look at it and say, if she doesn't have the legs by now, it's going to be tough to get her to get them?
I'm a big drills guy. So drills. We'll develop a bunch of drills, find something that gets to that kid and get her in her legs a little more. And I do the same thing with hitters. There's so many dead leg hitters out there. It drives me crazy. But yeah, just get some drills, finally get some that gets between their ears. Oh, wow, coach, that makes sense. Now the kid's living and throwing a little bit harder, and do things much better. And that goes to the other part of your question about some of the stuff you see online. I even tell my players, I said, try everything that I say, but you don't have to do anything. Same thing with the Google, the Instagram, the TikTok, whatever. You see some goofy stuff out there. Hey, give it a shot. I can't say I'm going to tell you to do it, but give it a shot, because if it works for that kid, heck yeah. But there is so much, I'm not going to call it trash out there, but there's so much goofy stuff out there. And we had a young lady in Arizona. Unfortunately, she quit after her junior college career. But this young lady was throwing upper 60s to 70 miles an hour all day long. And if you saw her arm action, you would say, who taught her how to do that? Mm-hmm. But we looked at that and said, she's bumping 70. Why would you change that? And It also had, and I compared it to Mariano Rivera. It had such late cut at 70 miles an hour. People could not touch her. And that's the same thing, is that you're not going to change that kid.
All right, let's talk a little bit about data. You know, everybody's enamored of data these days. We see it all the time, data. How do you use it without letting it control or maybe kind of override what you know intrinsically?
You know, the data thing, the analytics and all that stuff is awesome. I'm a big fan, but I'm also a big fan of coaching and personalities. You know, as a head coach and even with the assistant coaches, your hardest job or biggest job every day is personality management. So you get to know your kids really well. Well, data's not going to tell me who's in a bad mood, who had a fight with their bestie, whose dad was getting on them too hard last night, so they're in a really bad mood. Data's not going to tell me that. So you got to be able to add the personalities into it. But data's awesome. Some of the stuff that's going on out there now, taking UND, for example, with Synergy and all the stuff we do with video and heat maps and all that stuff. 5-6 years ago, all the Power 4/Power 5 schools had it. They had every single pitch on every single one of our batters, our pitchers. They had video on every single person. We didn't. We're a mid-major who didn't spend that kind of money. All of a sudden, a couple of years ago, UND gets it. I'm telling you, it makes a difference. Now take G. Juarez like you're talking about. I could look at every pitch she's ever thrown in every single count. I click on a button on her heat map. I've got video of that pitch. So the data is amazing. Major League Baseball guys are in there with their iPads watching their at bat, or the pitchers come out of the bullpen, they're watching video on this guy. Division I baseball made that a rule this year that they're allowed to start doing that. And as usual, softball is usually a couple of years behind for no real reason, just because we are. But you're going to see the iPads and dugouts in a year or two. And then softball is going to have that instant feedback, which is amazing, but not always the best thing.
Well, you know, it's funny, too, because when you talk about that and all the data that's available now that you can just purchase, some of those bench players are really going to run out of things to do. They used to be the kids that were in there doing charts, you know, paper charts and all that. What are you going to do with them now? Well,
and the other side of that, too, though, is I am the guy that likes to burn other teams when I'm stealing their signals. I'm stealing pitches. I'm that guy. And once I do have somebody's changeup, I'll bring all 9 batters in. Who wants it? And half the team will say, Coach, I don't want to know, because that's too much thinking for them while they're trying to do their thing. And that's where this data can get some kids to trouble in the dugout. They're going to have a bad at bat, get in the dugout and dwell so much on it where, you know, my golden rule is if you do something wrong, take about 10 seconds, kick yourself in the backside for it, and then get over it. Whereas now they're going to be able to walk in the dugout for the next 30 minutes and look what happened to that bat, or that ground ball, or the pitcher facing that bat, or what they did wrong. So that's where it can be a negative too. It's going to be a bit of a mental approach for some people that can't do that.
I want to ask you a question, Don. This is along the lines. There's been some changes in pitching in regards to leaping now, right? So, and there's a lot of trends that are currently going. First of all, what are your thoughts on the leaping with the way that they're calling it now? And then also, too, are there any other overhyped kind of trends that you see that you don't like and maybe could even be harmful?
Well, here's a funny story. For years, I've umpired a couple games a year because my schedule is too busy. But if I had a day off, I'd go umpire a high school game or a summer ball game. Last year on my year off, I umpired way too much. But the one thing that I've got respect for them is they can't see everything all the time. Mm-hmm. So loosening up the rules a little bit like international fast pitch or men's fast pitch, allowing the pitchers to do a little more, is taking that discretion part away from the umpires. They don't have to deal with anymore. So it's going to help the game a little bit once we get settled. But you talk to some real high level pitchers that have pitched over the years. The leaping is fine. The releasing is fine. All that is that. But some people are teaching the kids to really get up in the air. Well, yes. Where are we pitching? Straight ahead in front of us. Mm-hmm. So jumping up in the air is probably taking a bit out of your legs that I was talking about. So some of that, I have no problem with the leaping or the getting airborne. If you remember back in the day, Kenzie Fowler at Arizona in the World Series kept getting illegal pitch. Yep. With the naked eye, I don't know how those umpires ever saw it, because when they slowed it down to slow-mo, I think I saw a millimeter or two underneath the cleat. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kenzie was amazing. Imagine what she'd be today when she didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So like I said, I have no problem with it because it's allowing the players to play. But there is some people instructing some awkward stuff. And I've talked to some amazing pitching coaches, and they agree that this whole up part of the leaping is not really helping most pitchers.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard the argument that it's helping them get a little bit closer to the hitter. So, they're claiming that's an advantage. But if you're doing that by slowing your body down, not getting as much forward drive when your foot lands, I would think that would offset it or even still throw the balance down.
Yeah, if they ever get to the rules like men's fast pitch, where it's a hop, skip, and a jump and throw the ball, and you're now 48 feet away from the plate, that's where it'll make a big difference. But the concentration at the high school level and the college levels right now is really watch that there's not a second replant. But some people are flat out teaching a second replant, and that's going to hurt a lot of pitchers because they're being taught wrong. That may be legal in a few years. We'll see. But there are some kids that I'm watching on videos and people showing it. Yeah, that's illegal all day long.
Time, Blue.
Hey, Jay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think brush contact is for pitchers?
It's pretty high up there, Ken. Probably a 10, since it's hard to get maximum speed or accuracy without it.
Yeah, I agree. But have you ever had a student who struggled to get good light brush contact?
Sure, all the time, in fact. Especially when they've been taught hello elbow and are trying to throw around their hips, or they're sliding their hips out of the way, doing that crazy ninja move.
So what do you do when you run into that situation? Keep railing on them until they get it right?
I used to do that a lot, but then I learned about a product called Pitch Squeak, Ken.
Pitch Squeak? What's that?
It's a cool little armband with a squeaker inside of it.
Like a dog toy?
Yeah, kinda.
So how does it work?
Well, you slip the armband onto the pitcher's forearm and you set it so the squeaker is where the brush contact should happen. Then, when the pitcher goes into release, she tries to get it to squeak, like this. If she makes it happen, she got brush. If there's no sound, she knows immediately and can make a correction.
Wow, cool. So she gets immediate audible as well as tactile feedback.
Oh, there you go again, showing off with those big and technical words again. But yeah, she can feel it and hear it.
Does it really work?
You bet it does. I use it with my students all the time, and it helps them learn how to get brush contact pretty quickly if they practice with it.
Sounds neat. Where can I get one?
Oh, it's easy, Ken. Just email support@pitchsqueak.com, and Jason, the inventor of it, and a Polygirl certified pitching coach himself, will ask you how many you want and send them right out.
I'll do that today. Thanks, Jay. What's that address again?
Oh, you bet, Ken. It's support@pitchsqueak.com. One more time for those of you who are listening, support@pitchsqueak.com. And don't forget to mention in the email that you heard about it right here on From the Coach's Mouth podcast, and you'll receive 10% off.
Play ball.
So is there anything else in softball that's frustrating you right now? Anything else you're seeing?
No, there's not a lot that's frustrating, outside of the transfer portal. I've got my own thoughts on that. That one I find a little tough with, but the ever-changing world of college softball at the administrative, the NCAA level is mind-boggling. I do have some of my own social media posts that I post every day because I get a couple emails every day on the administrative side of Division I athletics, and it's just unbelievable. But the portal, I am grateful for the portal because there's not every school is the right place for every kid. Not every head coach is the right place for every kid. So a one-time transfer that's free of charge, I love it. But when we look at kids that are going year to year to year, there are 4 programs in 4 years, 5 programs in 5 years, chasing the almighty dollar or the W, I have a problem with that. And that's the one rule that it's not even a softball mechanical rule or anything like that that's bothering me. That rule, they've got to get it figured out.
And I'm going to add on to here a little bit. I know I want to talk to you about this a little later on because I got some other questions more about some recruiting stuff, but it's not just the kids, right? It's the coaches too, right? Coaches are also forcing kids into the portal. Like, hey, right? Like, and I think it's kind of, like you said, at first it was more like, hey, yeah, it's not the right fit or whatever. And now it's like, or kids are just entering the portal to see what the next biggest fish is. Right. And I think a lot of that, like you're talking about the portal issues, like it's coaches too. I've had kids that have been like, yeah, coach said I have to hit the portal, I'm not welcome back here next year. And that's a part of it too. So I think there's a ton of different issues with it that they really have to, like you said, they got to get something going here so that this is, or else it's just completely chaos right now. coaches forcing kids into portals, kids leaving into the portal to go do something else, or see if they're going to get paid or play for a bigger program. And it's also stressful. It's stressful for these kids. It's the educational piece of this whole thing is now kind of on the back burner, right? It's more about, for a lot of these kids. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that too, Don? Like, it's also some of the coaches, right? Like some of the schools are saying, hey, well, guess what? You know what? We've got this many kids coming in. We don't see a fit for you. You might, you're probably going to need to be in the portal.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
It really is the wild, wild west out there. There isn't enough rules across the board. But I hate to say this, and people are going to get upset about it, but it's the rich getting richer.
Yeah.
I take a lot of mid majors. If a coach wants to cut a kid or tell them to go into the portal, their administration won't allow them to do that. Okay, it's not every program can do that. The big dogs can usually do it, but a lot of the mid majors can't do that because they don't want to lose the students. But the big schools have to do it. Some of the best schools in the year. Look, you've got 7 or 8 transfers every year. Why would a freshman sign there?
Mm-hmm.
Kid coming out of high school, because you're never going to play. And we're seeing that often. Then they go on to the next school. Other sports, it's all about the money. In college softball right now, the NIL thing is awesome, but it's not as big as a deal as it is in other sports. It's going to get there because there is a few. But yeah, the biggest thing is there is coaches that are doing that. And once again, the recruiting trail was my favorite part of being away from the field. But understand that every coach is telling the families everything they need to hear. Every family and kids telling the coach everything they need to hear. Then you get to campus, and guess what? The coach is not who you thought they were, and the kid's not who you thought they were. Sometimes both, sometimes one. So it may not be the right place for that kid. So like I said, that's great for the portal. But if you're chasing the dollars and the W's, it's not necessarily what it's all about.
Well, is that having an effect on those seniors, maybe even the juniors, but especially the seniors in high school that are trying to get recruited, trying to land their spot, and maybe some of those schools that they'd like to go to are kind of sitting back and seeing who shows up in the portal? Because now you're going to have somebody who's got experience playing in college, or at least being in the college level, and would that be an advantage going to one of them instead of a high school kid who's kind of a pig in a poke?
Well, it is really going to hurt some of the high school kids because like the earlier commitments, those kids are going to have their spot. But the kids that are that next wave, they're going to have to wait and wait and wait. The kids that I thought were really going to prosper from this were the junior college kids, because they're kind of left waiting. Well, so many kids leave a program. I got to get college ready players right now. I'm going to get the best of the best JUCO kids, bring them in. So once again, these high school kids are now behind more college players. I'm a big junior college advocate. That's where I started. I've had a number of kids who played in the Major League Baseball in my college baseball days that were JUCO kids that went on to the big leagues. I've had a number of my junior college softball players that went on and played for Power 5 and Power 4 programs. So I'm a big JUCO advocate. And if I'm building a program right now and I need a couple kids quick, I'm looking at junior college because they've got 120 games under their belt when they get to me.
Yeah. I want to say another thing. I go through the recruiting process. I've been through the transfer portal process with my kids too. And I always say, like, especially kids that are getting recruited, is like, you got to really get to know the coach. And when you're on campus, I give them a list of questions, not to ask the coach, but to ask the actual players. Now, again, that doesn't mean the players aren't going to kind of sugarcoat it or whatever, but I always tell them, like, you have to understand that recruiting coach is not going to be the same coach you're going to get when they step on the field. It's going to be a completely different coach. And so I always tell them to ask the players, when they're alone and they have an opportunity, what is coach like when we've had a 10-game losing streak? What is coach like when she's mad? What is coach like if you have to miss a practice for a class? What is coach like? Those are like very valid and important questions to ask the players, not necessarily the coaches, because like you said, people are going to tell you what you want to hear, both coach and both player. And at the same time too, it's like, you need to make sure that this is going to be a place where you're going to be comfortable at. And I say this to the parents, you have to be comfortable that this person who is going to be in charge of your daughter for the next 4 years, and you're going to feel comfortable dropping them off every year, knowing that they're both their mental and their own well-being is going to be good for the next 4 years. And I think that's a very valid message because, like you said, recruiting coach and on-field coach are two different things, especially after a 10-game losing streak or a 15-game losing streak. And I think that what you said was valid. Like, everybody's telling everybody what they want to hear, but you have to do some digging. I talk about it too. Like we're talking pitching a little bit. I'm like, when I know that a kid is interested in this school, I'm doing research on the pitching coach. What does she teach? Is she going to overhaul mechanics? Are we going to be struggling here? And that's another conversation we're going to get into a little bit later here. But what you said there, Don, was super huge. And I hope parents that are listening to this really pay attention to it, because it's important that you understand where you're going to be dropping your daughter off for the next 4 years.
Well, yeah. And another approach for that one too, though, is we live in the modern day of social media. So I can look at programs that are losing a bunch of kids.
Yes.
Shoot, if I'm a 17-year-old junior right now and I see a bunch of kids leave a program that I'm committed to, I'm going to instant message one of those kids and say, hey, I'm looking at school. What happened? Some of them aren't going to respond, but some of them are going to give you the true deal and tell you why they left. And there may be very good reasons for that. It may be, hey, I wasn't playing enough and I got to move on. That's not a problem either. But this all starts at the club level too. The club transfer portal started 15 years ago, and you didn't have to enter a portal. You just left. I wasn't playing enough. I went to a new program. I wasn't playing at that program. I went to a new program. Hey, I didn't play there, so my dad started a program. We see that nonstop. And, I'm not picking on daddy ball or anything like that, but the one where kids played on 3 or 4 different teams and all of a sudden now she's on dad's team. That's the ones I can pick on a little bit. Sure, I'm offending somebody, but that's the way it works. But it started young and now it's carried into college. And until the NCAA or somebody settles this down a little bit, it's just the wild, wild west. And I can't even talk about the tampering because I'll get myself in trouble there.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, Don, don't think of it as offending people. Think of this as informing people, because you'd be surprised how many people have blinders on to a lot of this stuff. And that's the whole purpose of why we started this podcast is to try to help inform parents, players, and even coaches, right, about what reality really is and what's really going on. So don't think of it as making people mad. You're free to make whoever you want to be mad here, as long as we're informing people and we're speaking the truth. That's the whole purpose of this. So again, don't think like you're going to make people mad. And if you do, they don't want to hear the truth to begin with anyway. So it is what it is. But I want to switch gears. Oh, Ken, you have?
I was just going to say, I make people mad on a regular basis, so I'm kind of used to it by now.
Very true. But so I want to switch gears a little bit with you, and I want to talk about recruiting here. Okay, so what are college coaches really looking for? Let's just say, for you, it's pitching. It's probably a little bit more, but it can be a middle infielder too, or whatever you want. But what are college coaches really looking for in pitchers right now? I know you talked about a vertical game, velocity. What else? Is there anything else you're looking for when you're evaluating out there, recruiting, evaluating a pitcher or maybe shortstop or whatever?
Big part of it for me is communication. Like, I'm looking at body language all the time. I am that coach that you've heard stories about. I get there for pregame. I want to see how you walk into the field. I want to see how you place your bag in the dugout. I want to see how you're around your teammates during pregame and then how you warm up. Because when you get to college, it is a full-time job on top of your full-time student life, on top of your, hey, maybe I got to eat and sleep once in a while. Okay. So I want to get there early, because if it's a kid I'm serious about, I'm watching them even after the game, how they interact with mom and dad. I had a kid a few years ago that yelled to Mom, get me a Gatorade. And I said, that ain't a kid I want. If you would have asked, hey, Mom, can you grab me a Gatorade? I would have fell in love with that kid. But because it was a go get me this, go get me that, nah, I'm not interested, kid. And you better be awfully good. And I can hope that you're going to change when you get a bit older. Okay. But I got to watch that person's body language, communication, nonverbal communication. I want the whole ball player. Skill's easy to see. Hands and feet, arm, that's all easy. Bat, all those tools are easy to see. I'm not the coach that wants every player to be a robot. So if you're hitting great at that level and you're coming to me, we all teach similar mechanics. But if you're that good, why would I turn you into a robot how I want you to be? Keep doing what you're doing. Just you're going to get bigger and faster and stronger at the college level.
So what are some common mistakes that you see players or even parents making in the recruiting process?
Well, the easy mistakes are the ones that, I do a lot of camps, and as coaches, we'd communicate, hey, go check out the dad on field 5. And you would wander over there, and everybody knows that there's that dad or that mom. I can't just pick on dads here. There's those things there. Understand, coaches are seeing you, and then when you're doing something that's not favorable, as a player or a coach, we talk. Okay, because we're all one big family out there. While I'm on the field, I want to kick your butt. Once we get off the field, I want to shake your hand, give you a hug, or whatever it is when we're friends. And we do talk. And there's times where I'm looking for an arm, but my best friend at Pick Your University is not looking for one. Hey, did you see that kid over on field 2? She's throwing it. And so we talk. So some of the mistakes are the little things that you're doing throughout the day that are negative. If somebody sees it, word spreads real quick. Because we always know, like, I watched Jordy Ball play her junior and senior year at the state tournament. I knew I wasn't getting that kid at the University of North Dakota. Okay, I knew that. Okay, but I had to go watch her play because that kid is one of my favorite players I've ever watched because she did everything at full speed. That kid, I call her a beast, but she ain't that big. Okay, right. Jordy Ball is amazing because she does everything so well to the fullest of her ability. If I see a kid doing that from the moment they walk in to start their day till they leave, they can even have moderate skill. I'm interested.
That's a great, everything she does is full. So that's fantastic. I do want to talk, and I think she's one of those, like I talk about, she's an outlier. Like they're just such a rare breed, right? And that's why she's playing where she's at and what she does, right? And so, and those kids are such outliers. So I want to ask you one thing though. Do you feel the landscape has kind of changed with players though? Do you feel like they're more entitled now than in the past? What are your thoughts on that? You see some of these kids are just, the expectation for them is just, they seem just a little bit more entitled. What are your thoughts, Don?
Well, the entitlement issue is always there because it has changed and kids change. Back in my day, which is getting on now, you worked your butt off every single day to earn your spot. Now you almost expect your spot. And we see it at the college level. We've had kids, because every kid on my team was the best kid on their team. Mm-hmm. Then they get here, they're competing with a bunch of kids that are also the best on their team. So that expectation that it's my spot, go ahead and expect it because it ain't going to happen. You earn your playing time on the practice field, you keep it on the playing field. So if you're expecting anything, you're not going to get it. So yeah, the entitlement issue is there, but it's not as bad as everybody thinks. Because I think you got a bunch of young ladies that are still not matured yet. Okay. So a lot of them, when they get to college, they maybe a dose of reality that does it, they get there and the entitlement thing goes away pretty quick because they see everybody else is around them is bigger, faster, stronger. Once again, there is the entitlement issue, but I don't believe it's as bad as everybody talks about, but it is there. And that also goes down to now the club days of I'm going to change team after team after team because I should be the starting shortstop. I should be the starting pitcher. So I'm just going to go to a different team. What happens when they get there and they're not the starting pitcher on that team either?
Yeah. There's a thing. If you have the opportunity to compete to be the starting pitcher on that team, I think that's what you should be looking for, whether you are that or not. As long as you can compete and it's a fair competition, then yeah, go out there and do that. There are teams where you're just never going to be there because they've made their decisions, or, in some cases, it's the coach and the coach's assistant, his daughter, and then their friends. They're the ones that are going to get the circle time. So I think that at the travel ball level, there's some reality that has to come into there. But again, if you have the ability, if the path is there to compete, then yeah, definitely do that. It'll make you better.
Yeah. And, we talk about daddy ball, and a lot of people complain about it, but I'll bet you that almost every one of those fathers did it for the right reason, for their kid. We even have it at the college level. There's talk about we don't deal with parents. We're college coaches. You still do. You're never going to escape it. We deal with it a lot less at the college level. But every time somebody gets a feeling hurt over that one, I just got to say, just remember, they've got their kid in their mind. We all want what's best for our kids. Now, your thoughts aren't necessarily the coach's thoughts, and they aren't necessarily the best thing for the team. But that's the one thing I always got to dial it back for a second before we react, is that these guys are trying to take care of their kids.
Yeah, I remember it being at a clinic, too, and hearing, one of the coaches was saying the best thing you can do to kind of shut some of that stuff down is invite the parents to come out and watch practice. They may see their kid in a little different light, and why the decisions are being made the way they are.
Yep, and you see that even for the coaches. At a school I worked at a few years back, an administrator made a comment about the coaches' culture wasn't good enough in the program, which is the big NCAA word is culture now. There had never been an administrator at one practice. How do you know that team's culture if you've never seen what they do outside of a game? Because if you're a bad team getting your butt kicked every day, okay, the culture is not automatically not going to be great on the field every day. Everybody's still trying. Nobody's giving up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But practice, if they're still going really hard, culture's probably really good. Okay. But if there's a lot of problems on the practice field, now we might have a culture problem.
Yeah, that's great. And also too, I think, Don, and let me know how you feel about this too. We have a roster at St. Xavier has got 25 kids on it, and that's a lot of kids. We're at 9 positions with 25 kids. That's ginormous. So people are going to have to learn to kind of wait for their time and for their role. And I think what travel ball has created with people just creating these teams is they don't wait. So when these kids get to college, they're like, well, like you said, I've been the starting shortstop for my team this whole time. Well, that's great, but there's an All-American who's been here for 3 years in front of you. And if you don't understand that you have to wait your turn, and it might not be this year, and you might go the whole year with just getting minimal reps, but if you're really into the program, I think, teaching kids to sit games from time to time is a valuable experience, even if it is your own daughter, right? Like, I think you have to do that. They have to learn, hey, right now, this is her turn to do things. So what are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of these kids, I think they get to college and like, oh yeah, man, I've been starting. I played for so-and-so travel organization. So as soon as I get there, I'm going to start. And it's like, no, these kids who have been here for 3 years have developed more than you because they've seen this for 3 years. So their development is above where you are, even though you're coming in as a freshman with solid skills. What are your thoughts on that, Don?
Yeah, well, mental and physical maturation is huge. The difference between a 22-year-old softball player and a 17-year-old softball player or 18-year-old is big. Okay. And there's freshmen that start because they're just so gifted mentally and physically that they deserve to start, and they will. It's like, I'm the coach that does not have a problem. My favorite players are the best 9 that can help me. Mm-hmm. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of times you'll walk into a program, especially the high level programs. You've got a 22-year-old body that's been in the weight room with a professional strength coach that's training them specifically for their sport. And then you've got a kid that's had their own private coach that's probably helped them, because that's a big thing now. So they're coming in strong, but they're not nearly as physically strong as that player. And then you've got the mental side of it, the maturity of playing. We'll just put a guesstimate of 50 games a year. So somebody with 150 Division I games ahead of me, or Division II or Division III ahead of me, that is a lot of maturity, because that is my biggest pet peeve with club softball right now, or the youth softball. The kids don't know the game anymore. Okay, they walk in without a clue how to play a softball game. They're just great athletes playing softball. And for instance, I like the number system like Own the Zone has and all that stuff, where you're calling out 5-3-1 and they know what to do. It's a great guide. It's a great way to call pitches, some offensive plays. But there's programs that use those numbers for every single pitch of every single play of every single game. The kids are baby robots using their 3-digit code to do everything. These kids have no clue how to play the game. Now, they have great skill levels, but if they get tested mentally, but I didn't get the right numbers, that's a big problem we're seeing. And even with the watches now, there's some great stuff there. I love technology. It's great for our game to a point, but there's some college programs, they have a 3-digit code or a message for everything. What happens when that technology breaks down and these kids have to think a little bit? And I have a thing called next play. We always make one play, but what's the next play? And that next play may be in that first play. Well, my 3-digit code is only good for that first play. What happens if there's an error, a ball gets overthrown, a base runner does something silly, somebody bunts with bases loaded? What's the 3-digit code for that? So there's always going to be a next play. Those kids coming out of summer ball right now, they don't know the game enough that they could even understand what a next play is.
Yeah, I had an experience like that when I was coaching. I think it was at the 14U level. And, we were always emphasizing, the kids learning the game. We tried to make sure that they understood it. And we were playing against a team where the coach just had to insert himself into every play, and he was calling out instructions to every player. But we get down to the bottom of the 7th inning. We're down. I think we're down a run. No, I think the game was tied. The coach, he's yelling out all this stuff, and he's telling his shortstop, don't try to make the play at home. Let's get the out at first, get out of this game. Well, sure enough, ground ball gets hit to the shortstop, and she turns and she tries to fire it home to get our runner, who was on third, with a tag play, throws the ball away, runner scores, another runner scores, game over. And he's freaking out about the whole thing. And my assistant coach and I were talking about it, and we're like, man, that guy talks so much. They tuned him out in about the 3rd inning. You can't constantly be chirping at them, especially at that age, and expect them to listen to you.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's, like I said, that is my biggest pet peeve is the kids don't know how to play the game anymore, but it starts with the coaches. Allow them. Like if you want to call every pitch of every game, that's fine. At the Division I level, I got charts and video to tell me what pitch I probably should throw. But I still would allow my pitchers to shake it off because they might be feeling something that I'm not. Shoot, the ball may have horrible seams. Okay, so they don't want to try and throw that drop curve or whatever, because they just can't get the feel of the ball. Stats tell me, the numbers tell me, got to throw this pitch. But the kid can shake me off. Now, at the end of that inning, we're coming in, so what were you thinking? Because I want to know. And she might flat out just tell me, Coach, that was not the pitch in this situation because I can't get that one to do what I need it to do today, or I can't hit my spot. Okay, that's the things I don't know through analytics. So, yeah, you've got to give them some ownership because, like I said, the number system's awesome. I like it. We use it at the high school that I'm coaching at this year. And I use more fake calls than I do real calls just to throw numbers out there and keep people thinking. Yeah, like I said, just we're doing too much of that. We're holding too many kids by the hand all day. And it goes back to, 40 years ago, if I didn't have school today, like on a Good Friday, we're at the ballpark with a bunch of guys, a ball, when we're playing some sort of game of baseball or fast pitch somehow. Kids don't do that anymore either because we're too busy worrying about being with our personal trainer, our jump trainer, our throw trainer, our pitching trainer, which are all great things because I do that stuff myself. Okay. Right. But the kids just don't go play the game anymore. That's why basketball is still doing very well, because you give 3 kids a ball, go shoot around and play 2-on-1, play 5-on-5. All you need is a ball and a hoop. But in softball right now, do you ever go by a field and there's just a bunch of kids out there playing ball anymore? No, because age 7 on, they're going year round.
Yeah, they're tired. So are there any things that you do with your team, your high school team right now, that you're doing to try to get them to understand the game? Any favorite drills or practice things that you're doing?
Well, one of my favorite coaches all time is a gentleman you might know. I think his name is Mike Candrea. He used to have something that he used to do at the end of his practices, which is really it's front toss, but game speed with situations. So you have runners on. So it's game situations. They call it reactions. They'd finish off a lot of practice with just a scenario and reactions. I'm doing that a lot with our high school kids. We'll talk about what all 3 jobs are. Hitter, this is what you got to do. Base runner, this is what you got to do. And defense, this is what you got to do. We started doing that a bunch with the high school kids. I tell them once, we repeat the scenario, how many batters we do. Last night we did it. We had 17 kids because our JV was with us. There were 17 batters repeating the same scenario over and over again. I said it once. We did it 17 times. They experienced it. And that's the way we're going to do it. They've got to experience it without being constantly told, stop, everybody move here. This is what we're doing. No, tell them, experience it. Then we moved on to the next scenario, called them all to home plate. Okay, batter, this is your job. Base runner, this is your job. Defense, this is your job. Went out. We did that scenario 17 more times. Now, I had 7 scenarios set for yesterday. We got to 3. Okay. We didn't get as far as I'd like to, but it's a bunch of young kids that are learning. And by the end of the day, as coaches, we're like, hey, they got it.
So you're still coaching high school, but what else do you have going on now, Don? What else is going on? I know Ken mentioned a little bit earlier in the beginning when he was introducing you. What else do you have going on besides coaching the high school ball?
Well, with this conversation, there's a couple things you hit on are the reason why I'm doing this. Last summer, I decided I'm going to start my own little business. So I started a consulting and training program, named it after myself. It's not original. It's nothing flashy, but it's DJ Stopa Consulting and Training. And I still love doing camps. People invite me to go do camps. So I love going to skill work, which I'm open right now. Everybody give me a call, shoot me an email. If you want me to work a camp, price doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be enough to get me there. But I'll come work your camp. But the consulting part is, in the recruiting process, you've really got 2 choices in life. Pay a crap load of money for a service to help you, or do it all yourself. Neither is wrong. They're both great. These services will do everything for you, and it can be pretty spendy, but they're going to take the work away from you and help you. You can do it yourself for free or minimal, but it's a lot of work. Okay. Some families write the check, get it done. That's the way life is. They can do that. Some can't. Neither one is wrong. But with the ever changing world of college athletics, there's so much information that changes daily. And now the federal government's getting in on the act, sort of. So it's going to make some changes too. So I want families to understand you're not wrong, whichever process you're going to do, but I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can make your process easier. And that's what the consulting part is, helping families through the recruiting process. I'm not even trying to get rich. I've talked to a bunch of people in the softball world. They say you're undercharging. I don't care. If I'm paying the bills and putting a little bit extra gas in my tank, I'm happy. Okay. And that's the same thing with the camps. I used to get, as a Division I coach, some of those camps paid me pretty freaking good to get there. Okay. No, if you're paying for enough for my flight, my hotel, and my meals while I'm there, I'm pretty happy if I can put $100 in my pocket at the end of the weekend. So it's not all about making money. I want more kids to play college softball. I don't want to help them get there. And the other part is reality. We're not all Division I ball players. I was not a Division I or pro stud. I'm 5'7.5". I'm throwing mid 80s. Trust me, I was never going to be a pro ball player. That pressure was not going to hit my lifestyle. Okay. I love this game. I want more kids to play, but there's also so much misinformation from social media, from coaches. There are programs that are telling a lot of falsehoods. I'm not going to call them liars, but there's a lot of falsehoods out there on the recruiting trail, and families are eating up and then finding out later when they get to so-and-so you that, hey, why is my bill $30,000 for this year? I thought I was getting this. Well, your scholarship was, by the way, it was $30,000 over 4 years. You're getting $8,800 a year or something like that. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's mixed messages. I want to help.
So if somebody wants your help, how do they go about it?
Well, I've got my own website. It's not pretty right now. It's effective, does what it's need, but you can go right to that website. There's a message board on that. My email is don.stopa@djstopa.com. And I also have a Gmail account for some users, which is easier, which is djstopacnt@gmail.com. But there's just ways for people to reach out to me there. I've got a little free consultation, and then comes the contract part, which is still not expensive, but you'll get a contract and you get my services for 1 year. And then anything above that time lot we'll use, then we'll add on, because I've got to make some money at it, but I'm not trying to get rich. And the camps thing, the same idea. If you guys are hosting a camp, come out there. I'll do skills. The only thing I ask for you is the last 30 minutes of the camp, you give me a parent session. And it's not about me selling my business. It's about me selling the information. And by the way, if you want to get a hold of me about doing this together, let's do it. So I'm allowing people to add a new thing to their camps that's not being done.
That's great. We'll try to remember to include a link in the description when we post the episode, so make it a little bit easier for people to find. For those who didn't write it down as he was saying it.
Yeah, and once again, it's a business. I would love to quit my day job, which I'm not. I'm working in a medical school right now at the University of North Dakota, where I'm doing a lot of what I did as a coach here as an advisor. I'm called an academic advisor. Well, their academics are already set by somebody else. They're coming here and going to school. I'm more their life advisor, their success advisor. And that's awesome, because what did I do the last 25 years in college? Recruited the kids, which I'm doing in the med school, help them be successful while they're here, and then see them grow to be something bigger and better at the end of the day. And I get to deal with med students now instead of athletes. And some of those were my former athletes that are trying to get into med school. I'm helping them on their journey. So I still get to see some of my girls an awful lot, because I'm trying to help them take their next step after softball.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too, that what you're doing there. I've been with that kind of a disadvantaged group, I would say, and trying to get more medical abilities out there to that entire population. That has to be very satisfying for you.
Yeah, not to get too preachy here, but our program was the original one in med. In 1973, there was 26 self-identified Native American doctors in the whole country.
Wow.
Okay. We started the program to create more Native American physicians. 283 doctors later, we've done pretty well. But now we do every medical field. We're helping getting more Native American health professionals into facilities all over the country, because we're a national program, even though we're part of UND. And I'm telling you, I've only been doing it for 18 months, but I absolutely love what I do.
Good for you, Don. That's awesome, man. That's great.
Yep.
And the paycheck's a little better than coaching too.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So we've had you for just about over an hour. We can't thank you enough for your time today. We just have one last question, and we ask this just about everybody here. Do you have any hobbies or hidden talents that might surprise some people?
Well, the hobbies are pretty boring. I got remarried a couple of years ago, and I got a woman that I am just in love with. My wife was 28 years Air Force when she retired, then 3 more years as a civilian in the Air Force. So my unofficial hobby now, I'm a Canadian, born and raised in Canada. I'm now a dual citizen here, but I've been learning a lot about the Air Force and the U.S. military. So call that a goofy hobby or what, but I'm enamored by it. Never would have joined the military as a kid, had no plans to, but through my wife, Heather, I'm telling you, it is cool.
Have you ever gone to the air show in Oshkosh in Wisconsin?
No, unfortunately, before my wife retired, the only air show here in Grand Forks I could have went to, UND softball, we were playing that weekend, so I got to see pictures, but I didn't get to go to one. And then Abbotsford Air Show in British Columbia is one of the biggest air shows in North America. I used to live there, so we used to see the planes flying over us every year.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. When I was a kid, we had the Glenview Naval Air Station, not too far from where I lived, and every year they would open it up for a day. I remember getting this cardboard rocket with a little capsule that would pop off. You would just use air, you'd push it in, and the thing would go flying up about 20 feet or so and then come down with a little parachute. And that was always a thrill. But then we get to see the Blue Angels fly, and that was always a lot of fun too.
Absolutely. And that's just one thing I've picked up in the last few years through marriage. As I said, my wife's retired, and tonight I'm actually going to a major's retirement party. A good friend of ours, the first was his first day as a civilian.
Awesome.
Great. Have you seen, there's a documentary, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about getting the Thunderbirds ready. And it's like, I guess every 2 years people rotate out, and, I think it's a new commander every 2 years. So, but whatever it was, it's just this really fascinating thing. And they're showing how they fly and how, like, one of the formations, it's that it basically defies physics. So that you have to everybody has to be right. And there's one particular key person. If they're out of position, the other 3 are going to follow them right into the ground. So there's because of what that person's doing, it sets up some turbulence in the air, and then it helps them to pull back out of this dive.
Well, if you think softball is stressful, imagine trying to do that every day.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So Don, I just thought, if you're like that kind of stuff, you probably want to try to find it. I think it was on Netflix, but just look up Thunderbirds documentary and it'll probably show up.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'd like to thank you guys for having me. And, when you guys get stuck on a topic one day, you want to talk about some more, I'd love to be back because this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, good. We've had fun having you.
Yeah, we've had a blast having you. We appreciate you, Don.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much.
You guys have a great day.
Okay. Thanks. You too.
And I'm free to talk if you want to stop recording. That's fine too.
Okay.
Or record it. I don't care. But
we will. All righty. Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks to all of you for listening and the kind words you've been sharing with us. If you like what you're hearing, please remember to give us a like, leave a comment, and share this podcast on your social media channels. Remember that there's a t-shirt waiting for you if you do all that too. Make sure you never miss an episode by following us on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're so inclined, you can also leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts to help more people find us. On behalf of the From the Coach's Mouth podcast, have a great rest of your week and weekend.